Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and this is the second episode, maybe second. I'm not even going to start numbering them up. Sorry, I'm spiraling. Outfit change! I literally just filmed the first episode like 20 minutes before I started filming this. I took a little break to get some water, and I did a little outfit change because I wanted it to look like I filmed it on a different day, but I already told you that I was going to film the next one, so whatever. Vibe switch. Wearing this little Playboy tank top. It's light pink. It looks white on camera, but it's like the babyest pink. And I wear Playboy in a Holly Madison Bridget way. I am a big fan of the Girls Next Door. I listen to their podcast, Girls Next Level, where they rewatch all the episodes of Girls Next Door. And you guys know that I love McBling 2000s Y2K stuff. And those two women are probably my favorite thing to come out of the 2000s. I absolutely love them so much, and I relate to them so much as well. That is the first tangent we could go on. I am the perfect mix of Bridget and Holly. I know a lot about like old Hollywood and the 40s and the 50s and burlesque and all of that. Have RBF like a mother, get judged a lot. I feel like I can't relate to other people about a lot of things. Very dry, very monotone. Bridget, Halloween queen, loves a theme, loves to get dressed up, going all out for things like birthdays and holidays. One of my favorite things about her is that when she is figuring out about something new or just diving into something a little bit deeper, she likes to know every little thing and get it from an expert or do something cute with it, make a whole day out of it. Like when she did the trapeze or went surfing and stuff like that. I just love that. So basically, I wrote down a stream of consciousness, something that will trigger me into getting into a stream of consciousness, something that will make me think about 5 million other things. And I kind of wrote down 4 of those things that get me started on rabbit holes. All the ones that I wrote down are pretty deep. So I guess it might be getting a little deep in the second episode, but who cares? I guess the one I'm going to be talking about today is it's okay if you're a loner if you can handle it. Some people can't handle being alone, and that's perfectly fine. Some people need to surround themselves with friends, family, other people, need a social job, and other people don't. And I feel like I fall somewhere in the middle, but I lean more towards not having to deal with people or being a loner, and being okay with not interacting with humans for a couple days or leaving the house. I'm not sure if I've always been this way. I know that I've always had anxiety since I was a kid. I don't think I could describe it as anxiety. I just thought I was nervous about every single thing, and that's kind of what it feels like. I'm just like anxious. That's what it was. I was just anxious and thinking about if somebody was going to call on me, like the teacher was going to call on me. I was having like conniptions about, oh my god, is the teacher going to call on me? Am I going to get in trouble for something that I didn't do? The clip system, I don't know if they do that everywhere else, but we had clips that you had to move, and it was like 1 through 5, and 5 was bad. Like you were wrote up, you had to get a referral. 1 was like you weren't perfect for the day, and I had to be perfect. Oh my god, the one and only time I had to pull my clip was because this substitute made the entire class pull their clip to like 2, I think, because the class wouldn't shut up. And I was one of those kids in elementary school that was like, y'all listen to the teacher, please. Listen to the teacher, please. Shut up. And I about fell out when I had to pull my clip. Yeah, perfectionism, that's a different subject for a different day. Wasn't even okay, so where my anxiety started. Yeah, so I feel like I've always had that type of nervousness. Now, because I grew up in a small town, the people that you went to elementary school were the people you went to middle school with and the people you went to high school with. You knew these people since they were little kids. There was no reinventing yourself. There was no new year, new me, new school. Nobody knows who I am. I can be who I want. No, we knew you since you were in diapers, since you peed your pants in 3rd grade. Yeah, I remember it. I feel like I had a little bit better of a grip on talking to people because I knew these people. I've literally grown up with these people. You go to school 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for years. I know these people. I know their families. Most of the time, I've met their parents. I know their siblings if they have siblings in other grades. We might not all be very close friends, but we all know each other or know of each other or have at least spoken or had a class together. It was a small school. I only graduated with about 150 people. And when I left high school, there was only 500 kids in the high school. So I feel like in high school, talking to people wasn't something that I really struggled with because I was confined in this bubble of people that knew each other. Now, going out in public, anxiety inducing. Going to some type of event, anxiety inducing. But I literally did not understand anything other than I'm just nervous. I'm like overly nervous. Other people are not as nervous to do this thing than I am right now. Fast forward to graduating high school. I moved to Tennessee to go to college. I'm 17 years old when I start living alone. I did not spend very many nights away from my house when I was a child. It's a lot bigger than the city that I grew up in. It's a different vibe. I don't know anyone here, so I do get that opportunity to be a new person, new school, new year, new me. So I think that that was one of the few liberating things that I had when I came up here. I finally felt like this is where I can be myself and not feel like people are going to think that I'm fake. Because I felt like in high school, I didn't have autonomy over how I looked. I had to look a certain way because I had things that I was involved in that did not grant looking odd or looking different. And then parental figures in life were not the fondest of how I would like to present. So, they had a hammer and they used that hammer. But even then, if I did try, I feel like the people that I grew up with would be like, "Girl, what are you doing?" Like, I just thought about it too much. Anxiety, overthinking, not normal. So yeah, once I got up here, I kind of felt a little bit better that I could do what I want, go where I want, look how I want. My first day of college, this is a little bit of a tangent. My first day starting college, I was walking from the parking lot up to the college and I'm like, there is no one here. And I'm looking around, I'm like, why is this so quiet? In Shrek when they're walking into Dulox's little castle and it's like, it's quiet, too quiet. That was me. In that moment, I legitimately saw that scene in my head and I said, it's quiet, too quiet. And I'm looking and I'm like, what's going on? I had both headphones in. I take out a headphone because I'm like, what's going on? And this professor, starts yelling at me, get inside now, come here, get inside, what are you doing? And I'm like, what? So then I go into this random building. I don't know why I just trusted this person, but I did. They could have been, luckily they weren't, but we're not even going to go down that rabbit hole. I go in, all these people are sitting there because it was the band room. I was in the room with the entire college band, orchestra, or like actual marching band. I don't know what band, but they were all sitting there and like turn around, and it's like a bunch of kids like looking at you and I'm like, what's going on? And the professor or whoever it was like, there's a person with a gun. There's a person with a gun right where you were walking. And I was like, oh, I didn't see anybody with a gun. Like, what? But I guess there was some construction going on and I walked right past it. And apparently one of the construction people got into an argument with another construction person and pulled a gun on him. But it was on campus, so we had to go on a full lockdown. Apparently there was a text message that went out about it and I didn't get it because it was my first day. I wasn't signed up. I wasn't in the loop of getting text messages for school shootings yet. I was simply trying to go to my first day and figure out where I'm at. So that was my first day of college, which I feel like just got me immediately on the wrong foot of just like, oh my God, yeah, you could get shot just walking around here. which is something that is the biggest intrusive thought in my life. If you guys want to know what I'm thinking about anytime I'm in public, it's, am I going to get shot? Maybe we don't go into that right now. But just know that getting shot in public or public shootings is a huge, 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 huge intrusive thought of mine. Not doing it, but being a victim of one. Just to clarify. Always looking for an exit, always looking for an escape plan, always watching. I'm always watching. I'm vigilant. Stay vigilant. So I think that kind of triggered a little bit of, oh my God, anything can happen, and I am 100% alone. I have no family. The people that I can call my family are 10 hours away. God forbid something were to happen to me. God forbid I was walking down and that guy said, perfect, I'm going to shoot her. It would be minimum 10 hours until a family member could get to me. So that, I think, is what kind of gave me that oh shit moment. And that's where it kind of started. And it escalated. It snowballed in that moment. I struggled making friends. I did actually talk to a person that day. From that, this random guy came up to me and he was like, yo, that was crazy. I was like, are you gonna shoot me? No. I was like, yeah, I'm just so trusting of random people. Not anymore. Not anymore. Oh my God, man. That is one thing that they tell you, like, you know, when you're 18, you don't want to believe people that 18-year-olds are stupid and don't understand. They think they're invincible. Bro, yes, they do. I was not thinking, why am I talking to this random person right after a almost tragic event? But I started talking to this guy, and we hung out later that day, and then we hung out one other time. But then I quickly realized that it was easier for me to talk to people I had already knew in high school, and talking to people that I don't know. I'm not a conversationist. I'm not a conversationist. I'm not good at conversation. I'm not good at keeping a conversation going. I will never and still will never text anyone first unless I know you, unless I have that comfortability of, oh my God, I can send you this funny TikTok, or, oh my God, guess what happened? I cannot do that with random people or people that I am attempting to have a friendship with. So that quickly fizzled out. Like, we only hung out 2 times and that was it. And after that, crickets, buddy. I quickly learned that I am not a person that puts themselves out there. I had this class where you have to learn about college, like the college, and it's basically like they put all the freshmen in this class and you learn about the college, and there's like activities that you have to do, and basically it tries to help you, the people that aren't living on campus, because I was living off campus, make friends with other people that are on campus so you don't feel the way that I felt. However, I am one of those people that was like, no, not gonna work for me. You know, it was really nice. I did get to know those people a lot better. However, I'm not speaking up in class. I'm not hanging out with you outside of class. I'm not asking for your Instagram. My next semester starts, and that's when I was really, really sick, and I didn't even make it like 2 weeks into my second semester of college before I had to move back home because I was dying. Not an exaggeration. I was literally dying. Then that starts a whole another deep dive of anxiety. And then coming back to college from that, and just like, it's different. Once you have almost, this is another subject that I have for another podcast, so I can talk about that later, but it is different. Like, you cannot relate to people, and that's where I'll leave it at that. However, during that period of time that I had, which was probably like, I don't even know if I made it 8 or 9 months up here alone before I had to go back, but I wouldn't have gone back. I will say that I wouldn't have gone back if this was not to happen. Like, if I wouldn't have gotten sick, my ass still would have been here, because I'm stubborn and I like having autonomy over where I can go whenever and how I look. Like, I like that. In those months that I was here, I quickly fell down that hole of just like alone, and I don't have anyone. I don't talk to anyone. Austin and I were long distance for that pretty much entirety. And whenever he was not here or I was not there, it just felt like I had no one because I literally didn't. I didn't have friends, and my family was 10 hours away. I felt like I didn't have anything really to talk about. Like, nothing was going on. So I kind of got in this hole of like, if I were to die, how long would it take for somebody to even notice? And not that I was trying to die, but it was kind of that like realization of how small you are. Because when I was in high school and everything felt so big, every moment felt like it was the end of the world and like nobody else is going through this. Emotions were so big and so heightened. But once I got out of that bubble, out of the situations that I was in high school and away from that turmoil and put in a different place, it was a different type of perspective. And I felt itty bitty, minuscule, no purpose, no reason to exist because there's so many other people. I didn't realize so many people existed. It was the first time in my life that I was like, oh my gosh, the world is gonna keep on spinning. The world is not gonna stop. The world is gonna keep spinning, and we're all just little playing cards in this simulation that's going on right now. And I started getting a little existential about it, as one does when you're completely confined to yourself for a long time. That's where I couldn't get out of the mindset. I think once I dipped into that, there was no coming back. There was no coming back. And it is so hard to get out of that. And it took me years to get out of that. It is like a trained way of thinking. It is a habit. It is something that you form. It's a mental illness. It's quite literally a mental illness. It's a chemical imbalance in your brain. And honey, it developed tenfold on me in those months. And then I get sick. I'm hospitalized for months and months and months and months and months. My body's just like, girl, we don't want to be here. My brain's like, I don't want to be here either. So let's cut the check. Like, let's go. And then I'm in the space where I had a lot of trauma happen, having more trauma happen. And then I come back up here finally because I'm on steroids and feeling somewhat mentally stable enough. Not really. I was not physically or mentally stable. However, my grandparents wanted me to get that education, honey. So I was pushed and shoved back into college, even though I know for a fact I was not physically ready and anywhere near mentally ready. I had not processed anything that I had been through. I still do the same thing. I do the same thing. I don't talk to anyone. I don't get involved in groups. However, I had gone to therapy during this time. I started seeing a therapist when I was back in Alabama, who was trying to help me basically just cope with everything that was going on. In that point in my life, not sure if my dad had died then. I can't remember. I don't think he had. At this point, I don't think my dad had died. So in therapy, I was really kind of just working on anxiety and medical trauma. I was still dealing with a lot of anxiety, and at this point, it started to get really, really bad. I started to not be able to leave the house, like, at all. Anytime I left the house, it would be panic attacks. It wasn't just nervous, it was I'm sitting down, hyperventilating, like crying, can't catch a breath, like my heart is beating out of my chest. I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. I was going to these meetings with my aunts, and like I remember being like, we have to pull over, I'm gonna freak out. And just not being able to explain why you're freaking out is another hard thing to deal with. It's because people that don't have anxiety, it's really hard to explain it to them. They're like, you're nervous? Like, what are you nervous about? Like, it makes no sense to them because they haven't had that feeling before, so they don't really get it. Then my dad passes away, and that's already another huge thing to deal with, because if you didn't know, my dad took himself out. So that was another whole thing. It's not funny, but it's the way I cope, deal with it. It was another thing that I had to work through, so I said, you know what, I'm going to try to get into therapy up here. So I got in to see a therapist here. At that point, that was when I was really, really, really struggling with leaving the house and doing anything that had other people with it. That therapist was awful, not gonna lie, but he did help me see a perspective that I didn't really think of before, because one of the biggest things that I would spiral about was what other people are thinking about me. I would just sit there and assume these people are looking at me, these people are thinking about me, they think I'm ugly, they think I'm too fat, too skinny, too annoying, they don't like the way I talk, they don't like the way I walk, anything and everything. I was thinking the worst about myself and putting those thoughts into other people's thoughts. And that was the reason I was so scared to go outside. But what he taught me was you can't read people's minds. Who are you to speak for someone else? And he was like, do you like it when people speak for you? No. So why are you doing it to random people? You don't know these people. Why are you making up their thoughts and then telling yourself their thoughts like it's the gospel? That's not the truth. You're just making these things up. And then having someone to blame. Boing. I was like, oh, yeah, so I'm the problem, but I'm not really the problem. It's just the way my brain functions, the way that my brain like copes with insecurities and fears and things that make me uncomfortable. And he was the one that told me, like, would you leave your purse in a room full of strangers? And I was like, no, I would never do that. And he was like, then why are you giving them so much power? Why are you giving strangers so much power when you don't know what they're thinking? The thoughts that you think that they're thinking, you're making up yourself, and you don't even trust them to begin with. So if it was their thought, why would you even believe it? Because you wouldn't let them be in the same room with your purse, now would you? So that was like kind of a little bit of a perspective shift for me in that moment. It was something that I never forgot about. I remember it like it was yesterday, sitting there, because it was like that aha moment of, oh my God, I guess I didn't think of it that way. I feel like it kind of set me up on the foot of trying exposure therapy, which is kind of what I did. I just started microdosing humans, I guess, microdosing social interactions. My cousin started inviting me to these little game nights that she did, so I went to a couple of those. I started kind of not really speaking up in class, but if somebody spoke to me, I didn't like, I tried my best not to shut it down, so they would not speak to me again, because I always did that. You know, there's a way to just like shut people down, so they are just like, oh, this person obviously just doesn't want to talk to me or doesn't like me. I tried to like not do that. Gradually, it just got better and better. I was able to go into Walmart without panic attacks. I was able to get my, I'm not saying I'm completely 100% anxiety free to this day. I still get Austin to order food for me. We still go to self checkout. I still get very, very overwhelmed in large public areas. I do still feel like people are judging me all the time. However, I've learned to just turn it off and to just flip the switch. But not always, not always. It's not linear. It is, I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, being confident in myself and who I am and the choices I've made in life. I feel like a lot of my anxiety was rooted in insecurity and loneliness. And now that I am able to handle being alone, I feel like I couldn't get a grip on being alone because I had so much personal insecurity that I wasn't allowing myself to exist outside of the cage that I had put myself in. And I wasn't able to cope with a lot of things that I had gone through. The last 2 years of high school for me were a living hell. If you knew me during that time, you probably were like, that girl is a hot mess. If you knew any inkling of what was going on during that time, I'm sure you were really like, girl, what? And I think that once I got to being alone, and I had nothing to stimulate me. TikTok was not a thing. YouTube was there, but it wasn't like, the way it is now where you have like hundreds and hundreds of videos. People weren't making long form content back then. There wasn't a black hole of content you could bury yourself in. So I was just kind of left to kind of cope on my own, and I had no coping skills, and I had nobody to help me, and I had nobody to talk to about the things that I had been through. And I was also really embarrassed of what I had been through in high school and like the choices I had made, because once you get out of that cycle that you're putting yourself through, because I went through something traumatic and then I immediately needed something to cover up that feeling because I wasn't ready to deal with it. I wasn't ready to cope. I wasn't ready to address it. The people around me and my parental figures did not want to address what had happened at all whatsoever. It was an embarrassment. It was something that I was shown that I needed to be ashamed of. So I was ashamed of it, and felt guilty for allowing what happened to me to happen to me. I start on the validation train of I don't care who you are, as long as you are validating me in some type of way and making me feel like I have a purpose in any type of way, you will be my person. And if that's 2 weeks, that's 2 weeks. If that's 2 months, that's 2 months. And the moment I get a little bit insecure about it, or I start to get a little bit self-aware about it, bye, on to the next. And that's kind of the last year of high school, was just like a rotating door of people I was quite literally fucking over because I just needed a distraction. I needed somebody there to tell me the things that I wanted to hear, which is so absolutely awful. And I regret it 100 million percent, especially those people, because a lot of those people were really good people. How many times can I say people? They were really good people, and they were also going through a lot, and I was just completely insensitive to it. And I don't think a lot of them had the understanding of what I was going through, and it was not good. It was not good. Not to say all those people were good people, because there were a few people who were not the best, but they were a distraction for the moment, and that's what I needed. So that's what I sought out. So once I got up here and to be alone, it was the first moment I had a second to breathe. I had no one else talking to me. I just had time to reflect. And boy, did I reflect. And with that reflection comes a lot of inward looking inward. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm an awful person. And yeah, that was true. I was an awful person. I was awful. Point blank, period. There's no excuse about it. I was awful. And I try not to be so hard on my 17 and 16-year-old self, because I was going through a lot, and there is that lack of life experience, pretty much. Perspective shift, not a lot. Like, you're really selfish when you're a teenager because you don't understand. And that's why people always talk about how teenagers, they don't get it. They don't get that the world's not going to end. Everything is so big and all emotions are so big. That's exactly what I went through. So I try not to be too hard on myself about that, but I do think it's something that contributed to my anxiety. I've always felt like I've struggled to connect with other people since I was a kid. I've always felt different. Whenever I was in elementary school, I always felt weird because everybody had parents, and my parents, nowhere to be found. I had grandparents, which was not the norm. Nobody else that I knew was raised by their grandparents. Nobody else that I knew had addict parents. Nobody else that I knew had cops multiple times in their home, outside of their home, visited a jail to see their parents, don't know where their dad is, don't know what's going on with their dad. Like, they didn't have that experience. I always had that struggle to connect with people on things other than surface level things, like what's on TV or what's playing on the radio. It's something that I felt like gave me a reason to hold back from forming relationships with people or friendships with people, because I was like, they just can't relate. And it was this wall that I would immediately build before even getting to know someone on that level. I would just be like, no, they can't. Like, as soon as I would figure out something or just straight up judge people, I would immediately build a wall between me and them and just be like, they cannot relate to me. We don't have the same experiences. We don't like the same things. We can't be friends. We simply can't relate. That's something that I've come to learn since I've matured in life, is that you don't have to relate to someone on every single thing. You don't have to see eye to eye to someone on every single thing. On major things, I do think you do have to see eye to eye about like politics and religion and all that stuff. I think maybe you might have to see a little bit eye to eye on that. But little things like music and movies and stuff like that, you don't have to see eye to eye. That's what makes people individuals. I think it was my first semester of my senior year of college. I had been doing good talking to people, speaking up in class. I'd really turned a corner with my anxiety. I was chatting with people after classes, which is something that I've never done. I had just changed my minor from film studies to education. I was thriving in my education classes. They were so much fun. I started student teaching for credits and stuff. With education classes, there's a lot of hands-on. You're in group projects, you're going places, you're learning how to teach. So you have to be comfortable speaking and being in front of a classroom and all of that. So I was learning a lot and making a lot of progress. I started working at the radio station for my college, and I got put in a room with my friend Nessa, and that's kind of how I got my first friendship. It was just kind of by luck. It was my first friend, and I felt like, oh my god, this is what friendship is. So in those 4 or 5 years it was for me to find a friend between the beginning and the end of college, I genuinely thought that I was a person that wasn't meant for friendship. Austin has the same friends that he's been with since the dawn of time, basically. And anytime we'd have a conversation about friendship, I was just like, no, I just don't think I'm a person that can have friends. And he was like, no, I just think that you don't know how to make friends. And to this day, I have 2 friends. I have Nessa and I have Brooke, who we became friends after college. She reached out and we started hanging out. And that's how that friendship formed. But I do still feel like I have to work towards that. I have to maintain that. I have to consciously put in effort to a friendship, whereas I think other people don't have to think of it as hard. Brooke and Nessa are my friends, so I hope that they have an understanding of just like how I function as a human and how hard it is for me to respond. And now that I have created my mountain goths and I've formed a community and I've found a community where other people exist, if something were to happen and I did not have any friends, I still think that I would be able to thrive because I would just lean on that community a lot more. And internet friends, I have friends on the internet that I love dearly. We might not talk every day, we might not talk once a month, but I know that they are there for me and I am there for them, no matter how far away we are. And that's always nice to know, is that you have people in your corner, especially with me. Like, I don't have family, I have friends, I have a chosen family. And so those people, even though they might consider me an acquaintance on my end, to me they're more than that, even if we've never met before. But I do think that if you're someone like me and you struggle with anxiety and your story is similar, you struggle making friends, one of the biggest things that you can do to help yourself and to help others is to quite literally be honest. Be honest with yourself, be honest with your friends, be honest with your family, be honest with your therapist, be honest with everyone. Say, look, I'm struggling or I'm doing good. Look, this is where I need a little help. This is where I need a little bit of leniency. Like me, the food thing. That is my hard no. I will not be ordering food. It's really hard for me. I will not be doing it. But there are some things that I can do that I'm like, okay, you can push me a little bit to do that. And I push myself to do things. Like, it's really hard for me to like make appointments like with tattoo artists, and I've never been to that tattoo artist before. It's hard for me to just like, now I have to be stuck with this person that I don't know for X amount of hours, and it's awkward, and I don't know how to function. And, that's where I start getting back into the spiral. But I've been trying. But I know in those moments when I start to spiral is when I really need to push. And I say, okay, this is where I need to lock in with the work and the things that I've been learning and the things that I've taught myself, and really put those things into play here. Guys, it is 7 p.m. I have to be at work tomorrow. I only filmed 2 of these. I really wanted to get 3 or 4 done tonight. 2 o'clock me had big goals because I started this at 2 o'clock, you guys. 2 p.m. That's when I started this. It's now 7 p.m. and I am running out of steam. I still have to meal prep for the week. It's Christmas when I'm filming this. This is the week of Christmas. Let me know what else you guys want me to spiral about. Let me know if you're late. Let me know anything in the comments. Like I said on the last one, commenting really helps. So even if you just comment or comment an emoji, literally anything helps. So if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to contribute in the comments, comment. Let me look through emojis really quick. It'll be something obscure so we can confuse the other commenters. Or no, should we not do an emoji? Should we do something funny? Comment, oh my god, she said what? In all caps. But if you want an emoji, just comment the goal emoji. There's a little goal emoji that looks like a soccer goal. It's in the sports one with the little soccer ball. Comment that. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys.